The first cool breath of the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem rises from pale sand and rounded stone as you come to rest beside a dry channel, where water has passed so quietly that even its absence feels alive. Settle in and let the day loosen its hold. The wash lies before us like a soft path through the desert, lower than the stony flats around it, shaded in places by mesquite, palo verde, and ironwood, with their branches holding the last warmth of evening. You can feel the air cooling near the ground, where the sand gives back the heat it kept all afternoon, slowly, as if it were remembering sunlight. Here in the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem, nothing seems hurried, though everything has learned to wait with great patience. A wash is a river that sleeps most of the year, and we are sitting beside it during one of its long silences. Its bed is dry now, but not empty. If you lower your attention gently, you begin to notice the small signs of life gathered along this shallow corridor, where water once moved and will move again. The stones are smooth from old rushing, even though tonight they rest in stillness. Fine sand has settled between them. A faint smell of dust, warm bark, and creosote leaves lingers in the air, softened by the cooling blue of dusk. You are not being asked to go anywhere quickly. We only follow the wash as it curves between low desert slopes, letting its shape tell us what lives here, and why so much life chooses this quiet place between floods. The first thing you may notice is the green. Not a thick green, not the deep shade of a forest, but a careful desert green, measured out leaf by leaf along the line of the wash. Blue palo verde trees lean over the sandy bed, their smooth trunks glowing faintly in the fading light. Their bark can make food from sunlight, even when the leaves are few, and so they stand here with a kind of spare grace. Mesquite roots reach far down into hidden moisture, deeper than your eyes can follow. Ironwood trees hold their shadows close, slow-growing and heavy-limbed, with tiny leaves that soften the harshness of open ground. You can imagine the wash as a ribbon of slightly kinder conditions, a place where seeds catch, where roots find dampness, where shade gathers, and where animals can move with less exposure. We walk beside it quietly. The sand underfoot is loose in some places and firm in others, pressed flat by the last flow of water. A jackrabbit may have crossed here before sunset, leaving long hindfoot marks in the powder. Tiny beetle trails stitch delicate lines between stones. Somewhere in the branches, a cactus wren settles deeper into cover, and you hear a dry rustle that fades almost as soon as it begins. This wash is shaped by absence as much as presence. For much of the year, there is no surface water at all, only the memory of it held in the channel's curve. Then, when summer clouds build over the mountains, rain may fall hard on distant slopes, and water gathers from gullies, rocks, and bare hillsides. It does not need to rain where we are. The wash can receive water from miles away, a broad and temporary pulse moving through sand, lifting leaves, sorting gravel, carrying seeds, and leaving behind new patterns when it sinks away. This is not violence in the way the desert understands it. It is renewal, brief and forceful, followed by a long returning quiet. The plants here live with that rhythm. They are rooted in patience, but ready for change. Seeds of wildflowers may rest for years in the wash soil, waiting until enough rain touches them at the right time. Desert marigold, lupine, evening primrose, and tiny poppies can appear after winter moisture, brightening the channel margins with colors that seem almost dreamlike against stone and dust. In summer, other plants respond to monsoon dampness, and the wash may become briefly fragrant, with damp earth, bruised leaves, and the mineral scent of rain on hot rock. You can let that scent come slowly into the room around you. It is the smell of a landscape opening one eye. As we move a little farther down the wash, the light grows softer, and the channel walls rise just enough to hold the evening shade. Here, the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem becomes a sheltered passage. The open desert around us may still glow with heat, but down in the wash the air is cooler, tucked close to the ground. You might feel that difference on your hands, a thin coolness where the sand has already begun to release the day. Small mammals know this difference well. A kangaroo rat may wait in its burrow until darkness is complete, then come out lightly, almost weightlessly, moving over the sand in quick economical hops. It drinks very little, finding water in dry seeds and keeping its life folded into the night. Pocket mice, wood rats, and desert cottontails use the wash in their own quiet ways. They move under shrubs, along root tangles, beside fallen branches. They know the low places where cover is close. They know where mesquite pods fall, where seeds collect after rain, where a little shade lasts longer after sunrise. You and I notice only hints of them: a soft print, a clipped stem, a small opening under a bush, dark and round as a breath held in the earth. The wash is a road, but not a road made by people. It is a route made by water, and many animals follow it because water has done the difficult work of shaping passage through the desert. Coyotes travel washes at night, not as symbols of loneliness, but as ordinary residents moving through familiar country. A gray fox may slip between boulders. Javelinas may nose through damp sand after a storm, finding roots, fallen fruit, and the rich smells left by flowing water. Mule deer sometimes step down from rocky slopes to browse the greener growth along the channel. If you are very still in your imagining, you can sense how the wash gathers movement while remaining quiet itself. It does not call attention to anything. It simply offers a lower line through the desert, and life accepts. The birds arrive with morning. Though we are still held in evening for now, you can picture the first light touching the tops of palo verde branches before it reaches the channel floor. Gambel's quail will move in small groups along the wash edge, their curved head plumes bobbing softly as they search for seeds. They keep close to cover, stepping and pausing, their voices low and rounded in the cooling air. Verdens inspect thorny branches for insects. Phainopeplas may perch in mesquite or desert mistletoe, dark and silky against the pale sky, feeding on berries and passing seeds through the wash corridor. In this way, even a bird's quiet meal becomes part of the ecosystem's slow weaving. A seed lands where floodwater may later spread it. A shrub grows where sand has gathered. A patch of shade forms, and beneath that shade another life finds room. We follow these connections gently, because the desert does not separate them sharply. A wash is not only a channel, it is a gathering place for shade, moisture, seeds, tracks, shelter, and waiting. It is where the desert's hidden softness shows itself. Even the stones have a kind of tenderness when you look long enough. Their edges have been rounded by moving water. Their colors deepen in low light, tan, red, gray, brown, and faint lavender, all settled together in the sand. Some are volcanic, some granitic, some carried down from higher ground during storms, older than memory. You can rest your attention on one smooth stone and imagine the miles it has traveled by inches, lifted, rolled, buried, uncovered, and carried again. Nothing here needs to finish quickly. The wash teaches in intervals: rain, stillness, bloom, heat, dust, shade, and rain again. Below the shrubs where the roots knit the soil together, a quieter world continues. Termites break down dead wood. Ants carry seeds, husks, and fragments of leaves into small openings that look almost accidental. Beetles shelter beneath bark. Spiders set fine lines between twigs, nearly invisible until dew or dust reveals them. You may never see most of this work, but it is part of the wash's living body. Decay is gentle here, slower than in wetter places, but it still turns fallen things back toward soil. A mesquite branch drops, silvered by sun. A flood moves it a little farther downstream. Fungi, insects, and time begin their patient work. The branch becomes shelter, then softness, then food for the ground. As we sink farther into the evening wash, the desert air grows dimmer, and the life around us becomes less visible but more present. This is when reptiles give way to night travelers. During the day, lizards may have warmed themselves on stones near the channel edge, their bodies tuned to sun and shade with remarkable precision. A zebra-tailed lizard might have dashed across pale sand, raising its curled tail like a little signal in the brightness. Side-blotched lizards, whiptails, and desert spiny lizards all use the open margins and scattered cover in different ways. They hunt insects, pause under shrubs, and vanish into cracks with a smoothness that makes the desert seem to have swallowed them kindly. Now, as the ground cools, their activity softens. They return to shelter, and the wash becomes a place of ears, whiskers, and scent. You can feel the change in pace. The heat no longer presses outward from every stone. The air rests more easily against your face. The smell of creosote sharpens slightly as humidity rises by the smallest amount. This is one of the desert's quiet secrets. A little moisture changes everything. Not always enough to bead into dew, not always enough to darken the sand, but enough for leaves, noses, antennae, and skin to notice. The wash holds that faint dampness longer than open gravel plains. Its plants slow the wind. Its channel gathers cooler air. Its deeper sand can hide moisture beneath a dry surface where roots and burrowing creatures find it. So when you look at a dry wash, you are not looking at emptiness. You are looking at storage. The landscape is holding what it can. It keeps water underground, in seeds, in roots, in the bodies of insects, in the shade beneath stones, and in the living memory of every creature that knows when to wait. During summer monsoon season, the wash changes its voice. Clouds may rise tall in the afternoon, building over distant mountains with white tops and dark undersides. The smell comes first sometimes, that unmistakable scent of desert rain, mineral and leafy, almost electric but still soft when remembered from a safe and quiet place. Drops strike dust. The sand darkens in scattered circles. A shallow runnel begins along the channel floor, then another, then a sheet of water glides over packed sediment and around clumps of grass. For a little while, the sleeping river wakes. Seeds shift, beetles climb stems, ants close their entrances. The roots of palo verde, mesquite, and acacia drink what the soil allows. When the flow is stronger, it may carry foam, twigs, seed pods, petals, and fine silt downstream. Then, just as gradually in the listener's mind, the water thins. It slips into sand. It leaves behind a darker line on the bank, a new curve in the bed, a damp smell under the shrubs. And after the sound fades, life begins answering. Spadefoot toads are among the most remarkable listeners in this ecosystem. For months, sometimes much longer, they remain underground, sealed away in a cool chamber, waiting through dryness with a patience that feels almost like sleep. When heavy rain fills temporary pools in or near the wash, they rise toward the surface. Their calls can begin in the wet dark, low and strange and tender in their own way, not dramatic, only urgent in the biological sense of a brief season opening. Eggs are laid in water that may not last long. Tadpoles grow quickly, feeding and changing while the pool remains. The whole event may pass before many people ever know it happened. But the wash remembers. The damp soil, the tiny tracks, the new generation returning underground, all of it belongs to the desert's hidden calendar. You and I do not need to hurry through that thought. We can let it settle. Some lives here are built around long waiting and brief abundance. That is not a failure of the desert. It is one of its forms of grace. In the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem, water is a visitor, a sculptor, and a promise. It shapes the channel through erosion, but erosion here can be delicate when viewed across enough time. A bank undercuts slightly. A sandbar forms behind a stone. Fine particles settle where the current slows. Larger gravel remains where the water had more strength. Over many seasons, the wash writes its history in layers, with each flood leaving a thin sentence of sediment. If you were to kneel beside a cut bank, you might see bands of sand, silt, pebbles, and old roots, each one telling of a different flow. The desert does not hide its processes. It simply speaks slowly. We are learning to listen at that speed. The plants listen too, in their own wordless way. Catclaw acacia grows in some washes, its curved thorns catching lightly at passing fur, clothing, or falling stems. Desert willow may bloom along moister channels, offering pale lavender flowers to bees and hummingbirds. Seep willow and burrow brush can line sandy beds, their narrow leaves trembling in faint air. In better watered washes, you may find a greener density, with shrubs layered together so that the channel feels almost like a corridor of shade. That shade matters. It lowers ground temperature. It slows evaporation. It gives young plants a gentler beginning. It gives animals a place to cross from one part of the desert to another without entering the full brightness all at once. You can imagine yourself moving under those branches as night settles fully, not pushing through them, just drifting in the mind along their shadowed edges. The wash becomes cooler than the upland. The stones lose their glare. The sky deepens from blue to indigo, and the first stars appear above the dark lace of twigs. Now we begin to notice sound, not loud sound. The wash is mostly hush, but hush is not silence. A breeze passes through dry leaves. A seed pod taps against a branch. A quail gives one last soft note from cover. Farther away, a cactus wren shifts in a nest built among thorns, where the structure itself is a warm little chamber of grass and fibers. Insects begin their thin evening voices. A moth moves among pale flowers that open or release more scent after sundown. Bats may pass overhead, their flight too quick to follow, feeding on insects drawn along the wash corridor. You do not need to see them clearly. It is enough to know they are there, working the air above us with delicate precision. The desert at night is not empty. It is simply arranged for senses other than ours. Smell matters more. Vibration matters more. Coolness, shadow, and timing matter more. As you rest beside the wash, your own attention can soften toward those quieter forms of knowing. Desert washes also connect high places to low places. A drop of rain that begins on a rocky slope may travel down through rills, into a small tributary, and then into a broader wash that leads toward a bajada, a sloping apron of sediment at the foot of mountains. Over long spans, mountains weather and loosen stone by stone. Water moves those pieces downward. Gravity helps. Heat expands rock by day. Coolness contracts it by night. Roots enter cracks. Minerals change under air and rare moisture. The result is not ruin, but shape. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem lives inside that shaping. It is both a path and a product of geology. When we follow the wash, we are following the slow conversation between mountain and basin. The channel floor is made of carried things: sand from one slope, pebbles from another, silt from a far wall after a storm. Even the soil beneath a mesquite may be a gathered memory of many places, brought together by water that stayed only briefly. This can be a comforting thought. You too are allowed to be made of many arrivals. You too can rest in a low place and still belong to a wider landscape. The wash does not need constant water to be real. It does not need green leaves every month to be alive. It holds its identity through dry seasons, through heat, through dust, through the long pale afternoons when shadows shrink under every stone. Life here has learned that absence is part of the cycle. A dry seed is not a dead seed. A burrow is not an empty hole. A silent branch may be full of waiting buds. A shallow channel without water may still be the main artery of the surrounding desert. So we move with that understanding, slowly and kindly, letting the ecosystem reveal itself not as a place of lack, but as a place of careful storage, measured exchange, and deep adaptation. The night continues to settle over the wash, and below this fading light, another layer of life begins to open. The night continues to settle over the wash, and below this fading light, another layer of life begins to open. You can feel it first as a change in temperature, a slow loosening of the day's heat from the sand, while the branches above us turn from green to gray to nearly black. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem becomes softer at night, not because it is less alive, but because so much of its life moves without needing to be seen. We stay close to the channel floor, where the air is cooler and faintly scented with dust, dry leaves and the resin of creosote. A pack rat may be working nearby, though you might only hear a careful scrape beneath a tangle of mesquite roots. These animals gather bits of cactus, bark, seed pods, leaves, and dry stems into sheltered dens. building quiet homes that can last for many seasons. In the dry country, a packrat house becomes part of the wash itself, a small archive of plant life and patient repair. You notice how even the smallest builders here are not separate from the landscape, because every twig they carry came from the wash, and every shelter they make changes how shade and wind touch the ground. We drift along the sandy bed, and the stones beneath us hold less warmth with every passing minute. A narrow footprint crosses the channel, perhaps from a gray fox that moved through earlier, stepping lightly around clumps of grass and fallen branches. Another track may belong to a coyote, its path direct but unhurried, following the wash as if following a memory. These animals use the channel the way water uses it, choosing the lower path, the shaded route, the line where scent lingers. The wash keeps scent well, especially at night, when cooler air settles into low places. You can imagine each shrub holding a different trace: mesquite sweetness, dusty bark, the faint musk of a passing mammal, the green bitterness of leaves touched by insects. To us, it is only a soft mixture in the dark. To the animals here, it is information, recent and layered, a quiet map written close to the ground. We move through that invisible map gently, leaving it mostly unread, content to know it exists. Above us, a great horned owl might cross the open strip of sky, its wings passing without much sound. It may perch in an ironwood or on the arm of a saguaro near the wash edge, turning its attention toward the movements below. There is no need to make this dramatic. The owl is simply part of the night, as ordinary here as the cooling sand and the stars coming out one by one. You can let its presence feel like another shade in the darkness, deep, steady, and exact. Somewhere lower, under stones or in loose soil, scorpions begin to move with delicate slowness. Under ultraviolet light, their bodies would glow with an eerie blue-green, but we do not need to shine a light to imagine them. They belong to the hidden texture of the wash, taking shelter by day and traveling at night when the surface becomes kinder. They feel the world through touch and vibration, through tiny changes in the ground, through the nearness of insects in the sand. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is full of these quiet specialists, creatures whose lives are tuned to a narrow band of conditions that appear only at certain hours. You may think of the wash as a place that opens and closes, not with doors but with temperature, moisture, and light. At noon, it belongs to heat, shade, and stillness. At dusk, it gives itself to movement. After rain, it becomes a green corridor. In drought, it becomes a storehouse of roots, seeds, and burrows. As we follow the channel further, the banks become slightly higher, and the wash feels more enclosed, as if the desert has lowered its voice. The sand here is finer, sifted by water and wind into shallow ripples around stones. Dry grasses lean over the edges, their seed heads brushing the air with the smallest sound. You can feel how this little hollow holds the night around us, and how the sky above seems farther away, framed by the dark shapes of branches. A desert tarantula may be near its burrow, slow and calm in the cooling air, its body moving with a softness that surprises people who have only imagined it from a distance. It does not rush through the wash. It waits, senses, steps, and waits again. The desert is full of lives like this, lives that conserve motion and spend energy carefully. When you watch them without fear, they seem almost meditative, each movement chosen because the night has made it possible. The insects are easier to hear now, though still not loud. Crickets call from hidden places, and their sound comes in threads, woven into the hush of the wash. A beetle moves over a smooth stone, its tiny feet touching mineral surfaces shaped by storms long past. Moths visit pale flowers that reflect moonlight better than bright colors would. Many night-blooming plants use scent as their lantern, and the wash carries that fragrance down its shallow corridor like breath. You can imagine a sacred daturka blooming near the margin, its white trumpet flower opening into the dark. Its scent may be heavy, sweet and strange, held close to the ground where moths can find it. The plant is part of the wash's night language, not asking to be admired, only fulfilling its old exchange with the creatures that come by air. We pass it softly, aware that beauty in the desert often belongs to the hours when fewer eyes are watching. When morning comes, the same wash will look different again, pale and open and lined with long shadows. But for now, we remain in the darkening channel, where moonlight begins to settle on the sand in faint silver patches. The stones do not shine evenly. Some catch the light on one rounded side, while others remain dull and hidden. You might notice the curve of a dry waterline along the bank, a small shelf where a past flow paused before sinking away. That waterline is a kind of memory held in form. Floods in desert washes can be brief, but their traces remain for months, sometimes years, in the placement of driftwood, leaves, gravel, and silt. A clump of grass may show which way the water leaned. A branch caught in a shrub may mark how high the flow once rose. The science here is not separate from the feeling of the place, because every pattern you see was made by weight, motion, and time. We move deeper into the wash's story by following those patterns. In one bend, the outer bank may be steeper, where faster water once pressed into it and carried sediment away. On the inner bend, the sand may be smoother and lighter, laid down where the current slowed. This is how meanders form even in channels that are dry most days, with water returning briefly, but remembering the same physics each time. The wash is a lesson in repetition without hurry. At the base of the bank, roots are exposed like fine dark threads. Some belong to shrubs holding the soil in place, slowing erosion by making the bank more cohesive. Other roots reach downward, tracing moisture that remains after the surface has dried. You can see how the plants and the channel shape each other. Water cuts the wash, plants stabilize parts of it, floods rearrange the bed, and new seedlings root in the soft deposits left behind. In the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem, that back and forth creates many small habitats within one quiet place. A sandy stretch is different from a gravel bar. A shaded bank is different from an open bend. A patch beneath mesquite is cooler than bare ground only a few steps away. These differences may seem slight to us, but to a seed, an ant, a lizard, or a mouse, they can be the difference between drying and lasting. The wash is a mosaic, but a gentle one. You begin to notice the small rises and hollows more clearly, as if your attention has adjusted to the desert's scale. A depression beneath a shrub may collect fallen leaves, making the soil there a little richer. A stone may cast enough shade for a seedling to survive its first hard days. A tangle of branches left by a storm may protect young plants from browsing mouths and harsh wind. Nothing is wasted here, not even the irregularity of the ground. The channel also acts as a nursery for plants that could not begin as easily on exposed uplands. Seeds carried by wind and water settle in soft sand, where they may be buried just deeply enough. After rain, the upper layer moistens, and if the timing is right, germination begins. Some seedlings will not survive. Many will return to the soil, but a few will find enough shade, enough root space, and enough hidden water to continue. We do not need to hurry past that quiet courage. A young palo verde might begin near a rock or beneath another plant, protected during its earliest days. A mesquite seed may sprout after passing through an animal, softened by digestion and carried to a place where nutrients are waiting. Ironwood seedlings grow slowly, asking little and taking time. In a landscape where growth can be cautious, survival often belongs to those who pace themselves well. You can feel that lesson without turning it into anything sharp. As the night deepens, we come to a place where the wash widens. The banks open and the channel floor spreads into a pale fan of sand and gravel. Here, flood water may slow and divide, dropping some of its load before gathering again farther down. You can almost see the invisible movement, water entering broad space, losing force, letting go of silt, seeds, petals, insect bodies, fragments of stone, and the fine powder made by mountains weathering in the sun. This spreading is one reason washes feed life beyond their own banks. A strong flow may soak adjacent soil, recharge shallow groundwater, or leave nutrient-rich sediment where plants can use it. The desert does not receive water evenly. It receives water in pulses and pathways. Washes are among the most important of those pathways, carrying moisture through places that would otherwise remain much drier. So when we sit in this sandy widening, we are sitting in a place of distribution. The air here feels more open, and the night sky appears larger. You can imagine the Milky Way faintly visible above the silhouettes of saguaros and ocotillo, though the wash itself remains our focus. A saguaro near a wash may grow taller where conditions allow, its pleated body storing water after rain. Its roots spread shallow and wide, ready to take in moisture quickly. Birds use its arms and cavities, insects visit its flowers, and fallen fruit may feed mammals along the channel edge. Saguaros are not strictly wash plants, but washes often help create the nearby richness they use. The same is true for many desert residents. They may not live in the channel all the time, yet they depend on it for movement, shade, food, or water after rain. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is less like a single room and more like a hallway connecting many rooms. You pass through it, and so does much of the desert. A desert tortoise, in some parts of the Sonoran region, may use washes and adjacent slopes as part of its slow range. It moves through the world with a patience that suits this landscape, feeding on grasses, wildflowers, and tender growth when conditions allow. During dry or cool periods, it shelters in burrows or under rock ledges. We can think of it not as a rare spectacle, but as another quiet way of being alive here, measured, low to the ground, and deeply connected to seasonal timing. Reptile life in and around washes depends strongly on temperature. The ground is not just a surface, it is a field of warmth and coolness, changing from sunlit stone to shaded sand to burrow depth. Lizards and snakes read these gradients with their bodies. A snake may follow a wash because rodents use it, because cover is available, because the channel offers a route through broken terrain. It moves without malice, simply participating in the same patient web as everything else. You may hear a soft sliding in dry leaves and then nothing. It is enough to let that sound pass without making a story around it. In sleep writing, as in desert watching, we do not need to sharpen every edge. We only notice that life moves through the wash at its own pace. Some movement is visible, some is sensed, some happens underground, where the temperature changes more slowly and the day's harshness cannot reach so easily. Beneath us the soil holds burrows like hidden rooms. Round-tailed ground squirrels may dig in sandy areas, their entrances opening near shrubs or banks. Kangaroo rats make tunnels with chambers for seeds, nests, and rest. Spiders line their burrows with silk. Ant colonies create branching passages that ventilate, store, and organize life below the surface. The wash above may seem simple, but below it there is architecture, delicate and practical, built from grains of sand and instinctive knowledge. Burrowing changes the soil. It loosens hard surfaces, mixes organic matter, creates pockets where water can enter, and brings buried material upward. Animal life is not merely living on the wash, it is helping make the wash more complex. You can imagine this as a quiet breathing of the ground, with openings appearing, collapsing, reopening, and being used again by different creatures over time. The desert floor is not sealed. It is porous, responsive, and full of small thresholds. After a good rain, these thresholds matter even more. Water can sink through burrow entrances and root channels, moving below the surface rather than running away immediately. Sand can hold moisture between grains, especially where shade protects it. Microbes wake in damp soil and begin their brief, intense work of cycling nutrients. Seeds swell, roots absorb, insects emerge. For a while, the wash's hidden life comes closer to the surface, and the air smells faintly of earth becoming active again. We drift toward the memory of such a rain now, though the night around us remains dry. It is easy to imagine the channel damp and dark with tiny reflective pools gathered in shallow depressions. In those pools, if they last long enough, algae may bloom, mosquito larvae may wriggle, and birds may come at dawn to drink. Tracks will appear in the mud: quail, coyote, rabbit, beetle, lizard, mouse. A temporary pool becomes a meeting place without any creature needing to plan it. Water in the desert is not only a substance, it is an event. It changes who can move, who can feed, who can call, who can grow, and who can be found. In the wash, that event has a channel ready for it, a shape prepared by older events. So the ecosystem waits in a state of readiness. Not anxious, not empty, only tuned to the possibility of change. You can rest with that feeling, the quiet readiness of a landscape that knows how to receive. The banks narrow again as we continue, and now the wash passes between low walls of compacted sediment. These walls may be made of alluvium, material carried and laid down by flowing water over long periods. Pebbles are held in a matrix of finer sand and silt, like a memory of many floods, pressed gently together. In the dimness, the bank looks smooth from a distance, but close up it is full of texture. Small holes, roots, stones, and faint lines. Some holes may be used by insects or small vertebrates. Others may be old root channels or spaces left where softer material fell away. A cliff swallow would prefer wetter places and vertical faces near open water, but other birds may explore banks for shelter or perches. The wash offers vertical surfaces in a mostly horizontal landscape. That difference creates more possibilities. A ledge casts shade, a bank shelters a burrow, a root grips a wall that might otherwise crumble. Here, the smell changes slightly. The air near the bank carries a cooler mineral scent, as if the earth inside has not yet released all of yesterday's darkness. You can feel that coolness if you imagine placing your palm near the wall, not touching hard stone, but packed grains, dry at the surface and perhaps faintly damp within. The wash invites this kind of close attention. It asks you to notice small differences, because small differences are how desert life finds room. In the morning, bees may come to flowers along this bank, especially after seasonal bloom. Native bees in the Sonoran Desert can be solitary, nesting in the ground or in stems, each species timed to certain plants and seasons. Some are tiny, easy to overlook, moving from blossom to blossom with quiet efficiency. They pollinate wildflowers, shrubs, and trees, helping the wash renew itself after rain. Their work is brief in the air, but long in consequence. Hummingbirds may visit ocotillo flowers when those red blooms rise above the desert, though ocotillo often stands on slopes and flats near washes rather than in the deepest channel. Its stems look dry and thorned until rain brings small green leaves, and then it changes quickly, as many desert plants do. You begin to understand that dormancy here is not absence. It is a folded state. A plant can look still for months and then answer rain with leaves in a matter of days. That quick greening affects everything around it. Insects feed on new leaves. Birds feed on insects. Mammals browse tender shoots. Pollinators find flowers. Seeds form and later fall, some into the wash, some onto slopes, some carried by wind or animals. The ecosystem moves outward from small openings of moisture. You can feel how the wash, by concentrating water, becomes one of the places where these openings happen most reliably, even when reliably still means rarely by wetter world standards. The moon climbs higher, and the channel floor becomes easier to see again. Pale sand reflects the light, while shrubs remain dark and dense. We pass a fallen limb caught against a stone, perhaps left by a past flood. Around it, sand has gathered in a small dune, smooth on one side and rougher on the other. The limb slows wind and water, creating a little pocket where seeds can rest. Even debris becomes a maker of habitat here. A grasshopper may cling to a stem in the dark, motionless until warmth returns. A praying mantis may wait among twigs. Tiny leafhoppers and plant bugs feed where green growth persists. In turn, spiders, birds, lizards, and bats make use of that insect abundance. The food web is not loud, but it is steady. Each relationship is small enough to miss and important enough to matter. You can let your mind soften around that idea, because the wash is made of many quiet dependencies. The plants along the wash are often armed, but not in a way that needs harsh description. Thorns, spines, and tough leaves are simply part of living with browsing animals, bright sun, and limited water. Catclaw acacia catches gently at passing fabric and fur. Mesquite branches carry small spines. Cholla joints detach easily and root where they fall. These forms help plants endure, spread, and protect the tender tissues they cannot afford to lose carelessly. The desert is practical, and its practicality can be beautiful. You may notice how much shade is made by thorny plants. Under their branches, young saguaros, annual flowers, grasses, and smaller shrubs can begin life with protection from too much sun and too much browsing. Ecologists sometimes call these nurse plants because they create milder conditions beneath them. A palo verde, or mesquite, may shelter a young cactus for years until the cactus rises through the canopy and becomes part of the wash margin's vertical shape. Care in the desert can look like shade. We keep moving downward, though the slope is slight, almost imperceptible. The wash knows where it is going even when we cannot feel the grade underfoot. Water would know at once. It would gather along the lowest line, split around obstacles, rejoin, and continue, carrying the smallest particles farthest. You can imagine that future water, while standing in present dryness, and the two states do not contradict each other. The wash is dry and riverine at the same time. This is one of the great calm mysteries of arid landscapes. A channel can belong to water even when water is absent. Its identity comes from repeated visitation, not constant presence. Likewise, the animals here may belong to the wash even when they spend part of their time beyond it. A quail covey may roost near the channel and feed upslope. A coyote may travel miles of wash in a night. A bee may nest in the bank and forage in flowers scattered across the surrounding desert. Everything moves across boundaries that we might draw too sharply. The ecosystem is porous. The wash breathes into the bahada, into the rocky slope, into the cactus plain, into the sky of bats and birds, into the underground passages of rodents and roots. You, resting in the middle of it, can feel that wideness without needing to map it completely. It is enough to know that the channel is a quiet center of exchange. The temperature continues to fall slowly, and now the sand feels almost cool in the imagination. If you were sitting on a flat stone, you might still feel warmth rising from it, but only faintly. The air against your face would be dry and clean. The scent of dust would be softer than before. Somewhere, a breeze might move through ironwood leaves with a sound like paper being turned far away. The wash has become a dark, sheltered room under open sky. In that room, seeds wait everywhere. Some are held in pods, some buried in sand, some stored by animals and forgotten, some lying in the shadow of rocks. Seeds can remain dormant until moisture, temperature, and light conditions align. Some need scarification, a wearing down of the outer coat, which may happen through abrasion in sand, passage through an animal, or weathering over time. The wash supplies many of these processes gently through movement, burial, exposure, and return. When the right rain comes, the response can seem sudden, but it is really the result of long preparation. You may wake after a winter storm to find tiny green paired leaves emerging from bare ground. Days later, more appear. Weeks later, if moisture persists, the wash margins may be softened with bloom. Pollinators arrive. Herbivores feed. Seeds are made for another season. Then the plants dry, lean, and return their bodies to the soil. The cycle is brief, but not incomplete. Desert annuals live by timing rather than permanence. Their roots may be shallow, their lives short, but their seeds can outlast difficult years. Perennial shrubs and trees choose another strategy, investing in deep roots, tough tissues, and slow survival. The wash holds both strategies together: quick bloom and old wood, tiny leaves and long taproots, momentary color and enduring shade. You can feel how the ecosystem does not choose one way to live, but allows many kinds of patience. As we continue through the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem, the channel bends toward a stand of larger mesquite. Their trunks twist low, dark against the moonlit sand, and their canopies spread wider than the smaller shrubs around them. Mesquite can reach groundwater with roots that descend astonishingly deep when conditions allow. In washes, where moisture gathers below the surface, they may become anchors of life. Beneath them, the ground is cooler, richer, and more protected. Fallen mesquite pods feed many animals. Humans have also valued them for food, though tonight we stay with the non-human life gathered here. Rodents carry pods and seeds. Insects bore into them. Quail and other birds may pick through the litter. Microbes and fungi slowly break down what remains. The tree adds nitrogen to the soil through its relationship with bacteria in root nodules, enriching the ground in a place where nutrients can be scarce and patchy. Its shade is not only shade, but a small change in the chemistry of the wash. You can imagine sitting under that mesquite as dawn approaches, though we are not there yet. The soil beneath it might be softer with leaf litter, dotted with small pellets, seed husks, and insect parts. A lizard may later bask at the edge of its shadow. A bird may sing from its upper branches. A rabbit may rest beneath it during the brightness of day. One tree becomes a place many lives use in sequence, each arriving at a different hour. Ironwood trees perform a similar generosity in parts of the Sonoran Desert. They are among the oldest and most important desert trees, sometimes living for many centuries, their dense wood and fine leaves creating deep islands of shade. In washes and nearby bajadas, ironwoods can moderate temperature beneath their canopies, allowing other plants to grow in their shelter. Their flowers feed insects, their seeds feed animals, and their structure offers nesting and cover. You can think of them as slow custodians of the desert's softer places. The wash bends again, and now we see pale stones gathered in a shallow bar. Each stone has been selected by water according to weight, size, and current strength. Smaller grains moved farther. Heavier stones remained where the flow weakened. In this way, the wash sorts the mountain piece by piece. It is a quiet sorting, repeated across seasons, making patterns that can be read by anyone willing to slow down. We read them only loosely, because sleep does not require exactness, only trust. A few grasses grow near the bar, rooted where sediment collected after the last flow. Desert grasses may seem fragile, but their roots help bind soil, catch organic matter, and offer food to insects and seed-eating birds. After rain, new shoots can appear quickly, bright and tender. Later, seed heads dry and sway, scattering food into the wash. The grasses are small compared to mesquite and palo verde, yet they soften the ground's surface and take part in holding the channel together. The texture of the wash changes under our imagined steps. Sand gives way to gravel, then back to sand, then to a patch of compacted clay that would hold prints after rain. Each surface invites different lives. Ants may prefer one soil for nests. Burrowing spiders may choose another. Seeds may lodge more easily where fine sediment gathers. Even water behaves differently across these textures, sinking quickly through coarse sand, lingering longer on clay, flowing faster over packed surfaces. The wash is a study in touch. You can let your own body become aware of texture, the cool sheet, the weight of the blanket, the soft pressure of the bed beneath you, while the wash continues in the mind. The desert does not pull you upward. It lets you settle. The channel's curves become like slow breathing. Inhale along a bend shaded by mesquite. Exhale across pale sand. Inhale where a bank holds roots. Exhale where moonlight lies open on stones. Nothing here asks for effort. Somewhere in the wash, a poor will may rest on the ground, its mottled feathers blending with sand and leaf litter. These nightbirds are gentle presences in the desert, calling softly in warmer months and feeding on insects in the dim air. Their camouflage is so complete that they can seem almost made from the ground itself. You might pass near one without knowing. The wash allows that kind of invisibility, where being unseen is not loneliness, but a form of belonging. Invisibility is common here. Many desert lives are active at night, underground, within stems, beneath bark, or high in branches. The ecosystem's fullness is not always available to the eye. That can be restful. You do not need to see everything for it to be whole. You do not need to name every sound. The wash continues whether watched or not, and its quiet completeness can ease the mind away from the need to hold every detail. Still, we keep noticing what rises gently. A line of harvester ants may have moved through earlier, collecting seeds and carrying them back to a nest. Their work influences which seeds remain, which are eaten, and which are buried deeply enough to perhaps germinate later. Some seeds are lost from storage and become plants. Some feed the colony. The relationship is not simple, but it is intimate. The ants are harvesters, dispersers, soil turners, and residents of the wash all at once. At the entrance of an ant nest, the soil may be cleared of debris, forming a small disk that catches light differently from the surrounding ground. After rain, water may flow around it or into it, depending on position. After wind, fine dust may settle there first. You can imagine the nest below, chambers branching, bodies moving, the temperature and humidity managed by depth and architecture. So much of the wash's life is hidden in gradients too fine for us to feel directly. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is shaped by extremes, but we do not need to describe them sharply. It is enough to say that days can be hot, nights can cool, and rain can be rare but meaningful. Life here responds through form, behavior, and timing. Small leaves reduce water loss. Waxy coatings slow evaporation. Deep roots find hidden moisture. Burrows buffer heat. Night activity avoids the brightest hours. Seeds wait for cues. Every adaptation is a quiet answer to place. Adaptation can sound technical, but here it feels almost tender. A kangaroo rat's efficient kidneys, a cactus's folded skin, a palo verde's green bark, a spadefoot's underground sleep, and a mesquite's deep roots are all different ways of staying with the desert. None of them are separate from the wash. Each finds a way to meet dryness, heat, and brief abundance without complaint. You can let that steadiness become part of the atmosphere around you. The channel floor dips into a deeper pocket where water might linger after a storm. Even when dry, the hollow is visible, marked by finer sediment and a few plants that prefer the slightly moister ground. Here, temporary pools may form long enough for insects to breed and animals to drink. Birds may gather at dawn, cautious and quiet. Tracks will overlap until the mud becomes a page too full to read clearly. Later, the pool will vanish into air and sand. Evaporation is a powerful force in the desert, but it also leaves traces. Minerals may concentrate where water dries. Fine mud may crack into delicate polygons. Seeds may be left in little rafts of debris along the edge. Algae may dry into dark films, waiting for wetness to return. You see how even disappearance has texture. The water does not simply leave. It changes the ground before it goes, and those changes become part of the next cycle. A wash with more frequent moisture may support denser vegetation, while a smaller, higher, or rockier wash may remain sparse. Elevation, soil, slope, rainfall pattern, and surrounding geology all influence what lives there. The Sonoran Desert itself is not one uniform place. It includes valleys, mountains, plains, arroyos, bajadas, and riparian corridors, each with its own emphasis. The wash we follow belongs to that larger pattern, a quiet thread in a wide desert fabric. As we move onward, you may picture the channel passing near a rocky outcrop. Boulders rest at the edge, their bases partly buried by sand. During the day, they would warm in the sun and provide basking sites for lizards. At night, they release heat slowly, creating small warm pockets where insects or reptiles might linger. Their cracks offer shelter. Their shadows shelter plants. Their surfaces collect dew more readily than loose sand under some conditions. A boulder is a habitat in miniature. Lichens may grow on shaded rock faces, pale green, gray, orange or black, living slowly from light, air, and occasional moisture. They do not need much, but they need time. On desert rocks, their growth can be very slow, forming thin maps across stone. They help weather rock surfaces grain by grain, contributing in the long run to soil formation. You can think of them as another form of patience, nearly silent, almost flat, yet alive and working across years. The wash gathers these timescales together. A moth may live for weeks, a wildflower may bloom for days, a mesquite may stand for generations. A boulder may weather for thousands of years, a channel may shift gradually across centuries, shaped by rains no one remembers. And you, resting with us here, do not need to hold all those scales at once. You can let them pass through the mind like cool air through branches, each one widening the quiet a little. A breeze comes down the wash now, following the channel as water would, though much more softly. It carries the smell of dry grass and stone. It moves a few leaves overhead. It touches your imagined skin lightly, with none of the heavy warmth of afternoon. In arid landscapes, nighttime air can feel startlingly clear, because the heat has lifted and the world seems made of edges softened by darkness. The wash receives the breeze and guides it onward. Air movement matters here too. Wind can carry seeds into the channel, pile sand against stems, remove fine dust from exposed places, and cool leaves enough to reduce stress for a while. Shrubs slow wind near the ground, allowing organic matter to accumulate. When plants are removed, washes can become more erosive, but in an intact quiet corridor, vegetation and landform work together. The channel is not fixed, yet it is held in places by roots, litter, and living roughness. That roughness is important. A perfectly smooth channel would send water away quickly. A wash with stones, stems, roots, fallen wood, and uneven banks slows the flow. Slower water can sink, spread, and deposit sediment. It can recharge the soil instead of only passing through. In this way, the ordinary clutter of the wash is part of its generosity. A fallen branch, a grass clump, a pebble bar, and a root mat all help the ecosystem keep a little more of what arrives. You can hear that idea almost like a lullaby. What arrives is held for a while. Rain arrives and is held in sand. Seeds arrive and are held in shade. Heat arrives and is held in stone, then released into night. Leaves fall and are held under branches. Tracks appear and are held until wind or water softens them away. The wash is not a place of grasping, but of temporary keeping, which may be the gentlest kind. We come now to a stretch where desert lavender might grow, its leaves aromatic when warmed or brushed, its flowers visited by bees. Nearby, brittlebush may hold pale stems and silver-green leaves, reflecting sunlight by day and appearing ghostly in moonlight. Creosote bushes stand farther from the deepest channel, but close enough to lend their scent after rain. Each plant has its preferred arrangement of soil, drainage, and light. Together they create a border between wash and open desert. That border is where many animals spend their time. The deepest center of the wash may be exposed, but the edges are full of cover. A rabbit can feed near the open sand and retreat beneath shrubs. Quail can move in a loose group, picking seeds while staying near branches. Lizards can bask on open ground and vanish into shade. The boundary gives choice, and choice is valuable in a place where sun, cold, and visibility change so much through the day. We pause near that edge, where the ground slopes gently from shrub shade into the channel. The sand holds a few old tracks, softened by wind until they are only impressions. One might be from a round-tailed ground squirrel, another from a beetle, another from a beetle, another from a bird that landed, stepped twice, and lifted away. Tracks are never the whole animal, they are only brief signatures, but in a quiet wash, they can make the place feel companioned, full of recent lives moving just out of sight. The wash also holds feathers, husks, flower parts, and bits of dry grass. A feather caught under a twig may have come from a quail, dove, or small songbird. It rests there until wind lifts it or water carries it farther down. A seed husk may show where a rodent fed beneath cover. A chewed leaf may reveal an insect larva. Every fragment is small, and none demands attention, yet together they create the feeling that the ecosystem is breathing softly around us. In the warmer months, cicadas may call from trees near washes during the day, their voices rising and falling with heat. At night, their empty skins can remain clinging to bark, delicate shells left behind after transformation. The insect emerged from underground, climbed into air, and opened into a new form. Even this, which could seem dramatic, belongs to the desert's calm continuity. The old skin stays on the trunk like a transparent memory, while the living insect moves into the brightness above. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem contains many such transformations. A seed becomes a sprout after rain. A tadpole becomes a small toad before the pool dries. A larva becomes a moth that follows scent through darkness. A flood becomes a sandbar. A fallen branch becomes soil. A shaded patch becomes a nursery. Change here is not always slow, but it fits within long stillness. And the stillness makes room for it. We continue along the wash as the night reaches its deeper hour. The stars have sharpened, and the moonlight has shifted across the channel floor. Shadows of branches lie over sand like dark water. If you listen in the mind, the wash has a layered hush, faint insects, occasional leaf movement, perhaps the distant note of a night bird, and beneath it all the great quiet of dry land under sky. You can rest inside that hush without needing to answer it. A black-tailed jackrabbit may pause at the open edge of the wash, ears tall, body still. Its large ears release heat and gather sound, making them both practical and graceful. It may feed on grasses, forbs, or tender shrub growth when available, then move onward with long, light steps. The wash gives it pathways and cover, but also opens sightlines in places. Like many animals here, it uses a balance of exposure and shelter, choosing moment by moment. Nearby, a desert cottontail might stay closer to brush, rounder and lower, with a softer kind of movement. It may nibble fallen leaves or new growth beneath mesquite. Its droppings add nutrients to the soil. Its browsing shapes young plants. Its presence feeds other life, directly or indirectly, without needing to be turned into a harsh tale. The wash is full of feeding and being fed, but in this quiet telling, we can see those exchanges as part of the steady circulation of matter and energy. The idea of circulation is gentle here. Water circulates through cloud, rain, runoff, soil, root, leaf, vapor, and cloud again. Carbon moves through sunlight, plant tissue, seed, animal body, breath, and soil. Minerals move from rock to sediment to root to leaf to fallen litter. Nothing is truly still, even in the stillest looking wash. But the movement can be slow enough to soothe you, slow enough to feel like the turning of sleep. If you look closely at the soil beneath a shrub, you may find a crust in some places, a living skin of cyanobacteria, lichens, mosses, and fungi, especially where disturbance is low and moisture allows. Biological soil crusts help stabilize the surface, influence water infiltration, and add nutrients. They are delicate, easily damaged by crushing, and slow to recover. In our quiet passage, we do not step on them. We simply recognize that even the ground's surface can be alive in a thin, patient way. The washbed itself may be too frequently disturbed by flow for crusts to persist everywhere. But on banks and nearby flats, they can be part of the wider desert fabric. Their presence reminds us that life in arid places often works in films, threads, and hidden layers. Not everything is tall or green. Some life lies close to the mineral world, darkening the soil by only a shade, holding grains together with microscopic strength. The desert's softness often begins at a scale we barely notice. As we move down the channel, the slope leads us toward lower ground, where washes may join other washes. A small tributary enters from the side, its bed narrower, lined with pebbles and a few hardy shrubs. During rain, water from that little side channel would meet the main wash, adding volume, sediment, and perhaps seeds from a different slope. Confluences are places of mixing. Even when dry, they show the branching logic of drainage, the way a landscape gathers itself. At this meeting point, animal trails may cross. A coyote may take one branch. Quail may use another. Rodents may forage where seeds have accumulated in the junction. Plants may grow more densely because water slows or spreads there during flow. You can imagine the confluence as a quiet crossing of stories, each one coming from a different direction, meeting for a while, then continuing. We do the same, arriving from the upper wash and letting ourselves be carried onward by its shape. The night air holds steady now, neither warming nor cooling quickly. This is the hour when the wash feels most suspended, as if between the heat of the day before and the light of the day to come. Many animals are active, but their movements remain restrained. A mouse noses through sand, a beetle turns under a leaf, a moth finds a flower by scent, a fox places its feet carefully along the channel edge. The desert does not sleep all at once. You, though, are allowed to sleep as much as you like. The wash will keep moving in the imagination without needing your full attention. If a sentence drifts past, another will come softly behind it, like sand settling after water. If an image fades, the next one will be simple enough to find. A mesquite branch, a pale stone, a line of tracks, a cool breath of night under the desert sky. The channel continues. In a deeper part of the Sonoran Desert, washes sometimes support blue palo verde, a tree especially associated with drainage lines and places where runoff gathers. Its green bark lets it continue photosynthesis when leaves are dropped to conserve water. In spring, it may bloom with yellow flowers so abundant that the tree seems lit from within. Bees come to those flowers, and the wash briefly brightens with sound, color, and pollen. Tonight, we see it in moonlight, but its stored sunlight remains part of its being. Palo verde leaves are small and often temporary, appearing when conditions allow and falling when dryness increases. This flexibility is one of the desert's graceful solutions. Instead of holding large leaves through harsh periods, the tree lets them go. Its branches remain alive and green. Its roots remain in relation with the soil. It waits without looking barren. You can take that image quietly, the green-barked tree standing in a dry wash, having released what it could not carry. The wash teaches release, again and again. It releases water into sand. It releases heat into night. Plants release leaves, seeds, fragrance, and shade. Animals release tracks, droppings, feathers, husks, and sounds. Banks release sediment when the next flow comes. The whole place is made of receiving and releasing, never clutching at a single state. This is part of why it feels peaceful, even though it is always changing. Its changes belong to a rhythm older than our watching. Farther along, the wash passes near a patch of prickly pear. The pads are flat and moonlit, with spines and glochids catching tiny points of brightness. In season, flowers open in yellow, pink, or red, and later fruits may feed birds, mammals, and insects. The plant stores water in thick tissues and uses a form of photosynthesis that allows it to open its pores mostly at night, reducing water loss. Even its breathing is timed to coolness. Cactus life is often misunderstood as lonely, but in a wash ecosystem, it is connected to many others. Birds perch on it. Pack rats use fallen pads. Insects feed on flowers, fruits, or tissues. Seeds pass through animals and settle in protected places. Young cacti often begin beneath nurse plants, where shade makes survival more likely. When you see a cactus at the wash edge, you are seeing not an isolated survivor, but a participant in a long chain of shelter and exchange. A cholla may stand nearby, its jointed branches pale in moonlight, almost soft from a distance. Birds sometimes nest among its spiny arms, using the protection the plant provides. Cactus wrens may build bulky nests in cholla or other thorny plants, making sheltered chambers lined with softer materials. The thorns that discourage some creatures create safety for others. The wash is full of such reversals, where one form of difficulty becomes another creature's refuge. We let the thought pass gently, without turning it hard. Protection in nature can be quiet and structural. A thorny branch, a burrow entrance, a shaded bank, a shell, a seed coat, a nocturnal habit, a deep root. All are ways life gives itself room to continue. In the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem, these forms of protection are woven into the very appearance of the place. The landscape's roughness is part of its care. The channel floor becomes rockier now, and our imagined movement slows. Larger stones create small steps in the bed, where water would tumble briefly during flow and leave tiny plunge pools below them. When dry, these steps make pockets of shadow. They also trap organic matter, leaves, twigs, seed pods, and fine sediment. After rain, moisture may linger behind them a little longer. A few extra hours of dampness can matter to roots, microbes, and small animals. In ephemeral systems, time after rain is precious. The first minutes wet the surface. The following hours allow infiltration, movement, drinking, cooling, germination, and feeding. Days later, if moisture remains, growth continues. Weeks later, the visible signs may fade, but underground changes remain. Roots have grown, seeds have shifted. Nutrients have moved, burrows have been repaired. The wash carries each rain forward in ways that are not always visible after the sand looks dry again. You can think of dry sand as a cover over recent memory. Beneath it, a layer may remain cooler, darker, and slightly damp. Roots know this. Beetles may know it. Burrowing animals certainly know the difference between surface and depth. When you rest your mind on the wash, imagine not a flat, dry surface, but a vertical world, with layers of temperature and moisture descending below your feet. The desert has depth even before any canyon opens. That depth is partly what makes it restful. The eye sees open space, but the mind senses hidden storage. The wash holds water below, life below, seeds below, coolness below. It invites downward attention, away from the bright surface of things. You may feel yourself settling in the same way, beneath the thoughts of the day, beneath the last bits of brightness, toward a quieter place where not everything has to be visible. The desert allows hiddenness. A little farther on, the wash may pass through a stand of desert hackberry, with dense branches that provide berries for birds and cover for small animals. Phainopeplas and other fruit-eating birds can spread seeds from such shrubs, linking plant patches across the landscape. The fruits are small, but they matter. In arid places, any reliable food source can shape movement. Birds visit, feed, rest and depart, carrying the wash's future in a simple act of digestion and flight. The branches of hackberry can make deep shade, and beneath them the soil may hold more litter. That litter invites insects and slows evaporation. More insects invite birds and lizards. More shade invites resting mammals. Again, we see how one plant can gather a small community. The wash is not evenly alive from edge to edge. It has nodes of richness, soft centers around trees, shrubs, rocks, pools, and bends where conditions linger. These nodes may shift over time. A flood may remove a shrub and deposit sediment elsewhere. A seedling may grow into new shade. A bank may collapse and create a fresh surface for colonization. A drought may thin annual growth, while deep-rooted trees endure. The wash is stable in its pattern of change. That phrase may seem contradictory, but the desert understands it well. What remains constant is not the exact arrangement, but the rhythm of disturbance and recovery. We follow that rhythm without needing a map. The channel tells us where to go. It curves around a bank, crosses a gravel patch, slips beneath low branches, widens, narrows, and continues. In sleep, the mind can travel this way too, not by command, but by suggestion. One image leads to another. Sand leads to roots. Roots lead to shade. Shade leads to animals. Animals lead back to water. Water leads back to the wash. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is especially rich because the Sonoran Desert receives both winter rains and summer monsoon rains in many areas. This bimodal rainfall pattern supports different pulses of growth. Cool season annuals may bloom after winter moisture. Warm season plants may respond to summer storms. Animals time breeding, feeding, and movement around these pulses. The wash receives both kinds of water when conditions align, making it a place where two seasonal rhythms can overlap. Winter rain is usually gentler, soaking more slowly into soil, encouraging widespread green if it comes in sufficient amounts. Summer rain can be more intense, falling from towering storm clouds, sending short-lived flows through channels. Each kind of rain leaves a different signature. Winter may bring carpets of small flowers and soft green along the margins. Summer may bring the smell of hot dust, wetted suddenly, the quick rise of toads, the rapid flush of grasses and vines. The wash knows both voices. Desert vines may appear after summer rain. climbing through shrubs with surprising speed. Coyote gourd can trail near washes, with large leaves and round gourds that persist after the vines dry. Devil's claw may grow in disturbed sandy soils, its curved seed pods catching on passing animals. These plants use the brief wet season quickly, expanding, flowering, fruiting, and then leaving durable seeds or pods behind. Their lives add a temporary lushness to the wash without making it less desert. You can picture that summer version now, not as a bright interruption, but as another slow layer folded into the same channel. The sand smells damp, leaves are fresh, insects are abundant. A toad's call rises from a pool and blends with distant thunder already moving away. By morning the air will warm again, and water will begin to sink and vanish. But for a little while the wash holds a green, breathing fullness, and every creature that can respond does so. Then the season turns, and the wash dries again. Seed pods harden, grasses pale, leaves fall. The channel returns to muted colors, tan, gray, olive, brown, and the blue-green bark of palo verde. This returning dryness is not an ending, it is the resting phase of the cycle. The ecosystem folds itself inward, conserving, storing, sheltering. You can feel that inwardness now, in the quiet night, as if the whole wash is drawing a blanket over its living roots. A ringtail might move through rockier washes, especially where cliffs, boulders, or dense sites are nearby. It is agile and quiet, using its long tail for balance as it explores crevices and branches. In the dark it may feed on fruit, insects, small animals, or whatever the season provides. It belongs to the wash as a traveler and forager, another nocturnal presence whose life depends on connected cover. We may never see it, but the possibility of it enriches the night. Possibility is part of the pleasure of watching a wash. You do not need every creature to appear. The knowledge that they might be nearby is enough. A burrow might be occupied, a track might be fresh, a flower might open after moonrise, a seed might germinate after the next storm. The wash is full of maybes, and each one is calm rather than restless. They give the mind something soft to hold without needing resolution. The ground grows slightly damp in our imagining where a past storm left deeper moisture under sand. Perhaps roots have found it. Perhaps a mesquite above us is drawing from that hidden reserve, lifting water through its trunk toward leaves that will open their pores under favorable conditions. Plant physiology can sound distant, but if we slow down, it becomes intimate. Water rises in darkness through living tissues, molecule by molecule, connecting underground storage to the night air. Leaves then trade with the atmosphere. They take in carbon dioxide, release water vapor, and use sunlight stored from earlier hours to build sugars. In drought, they restrict that exchange. In favorable times, they open more freely. Every leaf is a small negotiation with the air. In the wash, where conditions are slightly milder, those negotiations may be easier. A little more moisture, a little more shade, a little less wind, and life can continue with less strain. The same mildness draws animals during the hottest parts of the year. Even a few degrees of difference can matter. Shade beneath wash trees can be noticeably cooler than open desert. Sandy channels may hold cooler air at night and provide movement corridors at dawn or dusk. Birds may forage along the wash because insects are more abundant there. Mammals may rest in burrows dug into banks. Reptiles may choose basking spots near quick escape cover. The wash is a pattern of small advantages. You can let those small advantages become small comforts in your own body. A cooler corner of the pillow, the weight of a blanket, a slower breath, a darker room. The wash is not separate from the sensation of settling. It gives us an image of life arranged around relief, not excess. A little shade is enough. A little moisture is enough. A quiet path is enough. The desert does not ask for abundance to be beautiful. As the channel turns once more, we enter a stretch where the banks are lined with roots from both sides, gripping the soil like woven fingers. Flood water has exposed some of them, leaving them suspended in small arcs above the sand. They create shelter for insects and tiny reptiles, and they slow water when it returns. Fine debris catches there, forming dark pockets of organic matter. A seed may lodge in one of those pockets and begin when rain allows. Root systems are one of the hidden masterpieces of the wash. Above ground, a shrub may look modest, but below ground it may spread widely or descend deeply, depending on species and soil. Roots sense moisture gradients, follow cracks, branch in favorable layers, and abandon dry zones when needed. They stabilize banks and feed soil organisms through exudates, tiny releases of carbon that support microbial communities. The desert's underground life is not barren, it is simply quiet and economical. Microbes in dry soils often wait in low activity until moisture returns. After rain, they awaken quickly, decomposing organic matter and releasing nutrients. This pulse can be brief, but it is essential. Plants take up nutrients. Insects feed on new growth. Animals feed on insects and seeds. The wash's visible life depends partly on these invisible awakenings. You can imagine the first dampness entering soil as a bell too soft for ears, but perfectly clear to bacteria, fungi, roots, and seeds. We move past the exposed roots carefully in thought, leaving every fine strand undisturbed. The wash has become darker under overhanging branches. Moonlight breaks into smaller patches. The air smells more vegetal here, less open, with the faint sweetness of leaf litter mixed with dust. A small bird may sleep deep in a shrub, feathers fluffed, body warm against the cool night. Nearby, a mouse moves beneath the same shrub, living a different hour beneath the sleeper. Layering is everywhere. Birds occupy branches. Insects occupy leaves, bark, flowers, and soil. Mammals use the ground and burrows. Reptiles move between sun and shade. Roots explore below. Fungi thread through debris. Water moves through all of it when it comes. The wash is layered vertically and seasonally, and also by time of day. To enter it calmly is to accept that you will only ever notice a portion, and that the unseen portion continues kindly without you. A desert wash can look simple from a distance, just a pale line across a wide plain. From above, it may branch like a vein, connecting slopes to valley floors. From within, it becomes a whole world of shade, texture, scent, and movement. This difference between distance and closeness is part of its quiet wonder. Many things in nature become richer as you lower yourself toward them. The wash rewards nearness, not speed. We lower our attention even more, toward the grains beneath us. Sand grains are fragments of larger stone, shaped by weathering and transport. Some are quartz, pale and resistant. Others are darker minerals from volcanic or metamorphic rock. Their sizes and shapes tell stories of distance traveled, energy of flow, and time spent rubbing against other grains. In the wash, sand is not just background. It is the floor, the archive, the medium through which water, roots, and feet all pass. Between grains are spaces, and in those spaces water can move. Capillary forces may hold moisture in fine sediments longer than in coarse gravel, though very fine soils may also resist rapid infiltration when compacted. The arrangement is subtle. A plant's success may depend on whether its roots reach a layer that holds water long enough. A burrow's comfort may depend on depth and texture. A seed's fate may depend on being buried neither too shallow nor too deep. The wash works through such small balances. You can rest in the thought of balance without needing to solve it. The ecosystem is doing its own arithmetic in darkness, adding shade, subtracting heat, storing moisture, releasing scent, carrying seeds, and smoothing stones. We only follow. The channel continues, and our breathing can follow too, slow as the turn of a bend, soft as sand accepting a footprint. Nothing hurries us toward morning. A faint sound ahead may be dry pods moving in the breeze. Mesquite pods hang and fall through the season, curving and pale, sometimes gathering beneath the trees in sweet-smelling drifts. They are rich food for many animals, and their seeds are tough enough to pass through digestive tracts. When animals move through the wash after feeding, they carry mesquite possibilities with them. The tree's future travels inside ordinary hunger, and the wash receives those seeds in shaded, disturbed, or damp places. Palo verde seeds, ironwood seeds, acacia seeds, and countless wildflower seeds each have their own ways of waiting and moving. Some fall close to the parent, some travel in floodwater, some are carried by animals, some lie in the seed bank for years. The wash's seed bank is like a sleeping community underfoot, not yet green, not yet visible, but present. After rain, portions of that hidden community rise, while others continue waiting. No single season reveals the whole. This is why 1 year in the desert cannot tell the full story. A dry year may seem sparse, a wet winter may bring bloom, a strong monsoon may awaken toads and grasses. Several quiet years may pass while seeds remain viable below. Long observation is needed to understand the wash, and even then, the place keeps some of its privacy. As your guide, I find that privacy peaceful. It reminds us that not everything must be brought fully into view to be cherished. The wash widens again, and the shrubs thin, allowing more sky. The horizon is low and dark. A few saguaros stand at a distance, their arms lifted without gesture, simply growing as they grow. The sandy channel curves between them and us, pale as a dry stream of moonlight. In the open stretch, the air feels cooler on the face, and the smell of vegetation fades into stone and dust. We move slowly, letting each step belong to the ground. Here, wind may have more room to work. It can smooth footprints, ripple fine sand, and collect leaves in low eddies behind stones. Wind and water sometimes right over each other in washes. A flood lays down sediment. Wind reshapes the surface after it dries. An animal crosses. Wind softens the track. Another rain erases and rewrites the bed. The wash's surface is never permanent, yet its channel remains recognizable, a recurring line through change. That impermanence can be restful when held gently. The day's marks do not need to last forever. Tracks fade, heat leaves stone, clouds pass, leaves fall and become soil. Even the channel's sharpest edges soften with time. In the wash, change is ordinary and mostly unannounced. You can let the mind release its own sharp edges in the same way, not by force, but by allowing the night to move over them grain by grain. A small rustle comes from a clump of grass, then quiet. It might be a mouse, a beetle, or only the wind. We do not need to decide. The wash is allowed to remain partly unknown. In fact, its unknownness is part of what makes it soothing. We are near enough to feel the place, but not so insistent that every mystery must answer. The desert holds its own counsel, and we sit beside it without demanding more. The next layer begins where the open moonlit sand narrows toward darker vegetation again, and we follow it softly, deeper into the wash's long corridor of waiting roots and night-moving lives. The next layer begins where the open moonlit sand narrows toward darker vegetation again, and we follow it softly, deeper into the wash's long corridor of waiting roots and night-moving lives. Here, the branches lean closer, and the wash feels almost roofed in places, with mesquite, palo verde, acacia, and desert hackberry making a broken canopy over the pale channel. You can feel the air change beneath them, cooler and more still, with the faint dry sweetness of fallen pods and leaves. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem often gathers itself most richly along these shaded reaches. Life uses the shelter not as a hiding place only, but as a softer climate within the larger desert. In the darkness beneath the trees, the ground is not bare. Leaf litter lies in thin drifts, caught by roots and stones. Tiny fragments of bark, dry flowers, insect wings, seed coats, and old grass stems gather where wind and water have left them. If you could touch the soil here, it might feel looser and more textured than the open sand. It has been fed, little by everything that fell from above and everything carried in from upstream. This shaded floor is important for creatures that live close to the ground. Darkling beetles may wander through leaf litter, lifting their bodies over grains and stems with slow purpose. Pillbugs and other small decomposers may appear in damper microhabitats after rain, taking advantage of brief moisture. Ants carry pieces too small for us to notice, while termites work inside dry wood where humidity lasts a little longer. You and I only hear a faint crispness under imagined steps, but beneath that sound the wash is being remade. Decomposition in the desert can be slow, yet it never stops entirely. A fallen leaf may dry quickly and remain recognizable for a long time, curled under a shrub, waiting for moisture and microbes to soften it. When rain comes, that leaf darkens, flattens, and begins to return its stored sunlight to soil. The process is patient and intermittent. It matches the wash's rhythm, working intensely when conditions allow, then becoming quiet again under clear skies. We move on under the branches, and the darkness feels companionable rather than closed. A sleeping bird shifts once above us, perhaps disturbed only by the breeze. The fine twigs hold starlight in their gaps. The sand beneath them is marked by tiny crossings, some fresh, some nearly erased. The wash is a place where lives overlap without necessarily meeting, and this can feel deeply peaceful, as if many beings are sharing the same corridor by trusting the hour that suits them. When daylight returns, the shaded reach will host a different gathering. Verdens may flit among branches, small and bright-faced, searching for insects and spiders. They build rounded nests in thorny shrubs and trees, making both breeding nests and roosting nests in the desert's varied seasons. Their lives are energetic, but within the wash they still feel part of a calm pattern. They follow food, cover, and shade, moving from twig to twig while the larger landscape rests under heat. Gila woodpeckers may visit saguaros nearby and sometimes feed in wash trees. Their calls can sound lively in morning, but for us, still in the night, they are only a future possibility held in the branches. Cactus wrens may search for insects around cholla, acacia, and mesquite. White-winged doves may come when saguaro fruit ripens, linking cactus blooms and fruit to the movements of birds across the desert. The wash connects these foraging paths, offering perches, shade, and passage. You can imagine morning light arriving slowly, first touching the highest saguaro arms, then the outer branches of palo verde, before finally entering the channel. The wash does not brighten all at once. Its shadows withdraw in layers. A stone warms on one side. A lizard emerges to test the temperature. A bee begins to move. Leaves that had folded or rested through the night return to the work of sunlight. The ecosystem wakes by degrees. But we remain with the slower hour, where the dark gives everything softer edges. A moth drifts past a pale flower, and its wings are almost silent. Many desert flowers use nighttime scent to guide pollinators, while others wait for bees and butterflies by day. Pollination here is a sequence across time, not a single event. Different visitors arrive with different light. The wash's plants, by blooming at varied seasons and hours, offer small stations of nectar and pollen throughout the year. This timing is one reason diversity persists in arid places. If every flower opened at once, and every animal depended on the same brief moment, the system would be more fragile. Instead, some bloom after winter rain, some after summer rain, some at night, some in morning, some for bees, some for moths, some for hummingbirds. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is quiet, but it is not simple. Its calmness is layered with many clocks. Those clocks are not mechanical. They are made of temperature, day length, soil moisture, plant chemistry, and the memory written into genes over long time. A seed does not think about timing, but it responds. A toad does not count months, but it hears rain and feels wet soil. A tree does not decide in words to drop leaves, yet its tissues answer dryness. When we move through the wash, we are moving through a place where every life is listening in its own way. You may find that thought soothing. The wash is full of listeners. Roots listen for moisture, leaves listen for light, insects listen through antennae and feet, owls listen through the dark, seeds listen through their coats to warmth and water. Even the channel listens, in a sense, because its shape receives each storm and answers with a new arrangement of sand. You can rest among all that listening, needing to do nothing but breathe. The channel ahead shows a patch of finer sediment, pale and smooth as sifted flour. It may have settled from slower water after a recent storm, when suspended silt drifted down as the flow lost energy. Fine sediment can hold moisture differently from gravel, creating a distinct little patch for seeds and small invertebrates. If damp, it records tracks with great detail. If dry, it lifts easily in the wind, softening the edges of everything around it. A beetle track crosses the silt in a wandering line. Its feet have made tiny paired marks, an almost calligraphic trail. Nearby, a rodent's prints show a different rhythm, small front feet and longer hind feet set in a pattern of pauses and leaps. A bird's track touches down once at the edge, then disappears where the ground becomes coarse. The wash reads like a page written in many scripts, none of them intended for us, yet all of them available to gentle attention. Tracks also tell us that animals use the wash repeatedly. The channel is not just crossed by accident. It guides movement because it is lower, clearer, more shaded, and often richer in food. Even when dry, it offers fewer obstacles than dense upland vegetation. It may hold scent longer and provide landmarks through a landscape that can seem open, but is actually full of subtle barriers. To an animal, the wash is remembered through body and habit. Memory in animals can be practical and embodied. A quail remembers cover, a fox remembers a denning area, a kangaroo rat remembers seed patches, a hummingbird remembers flowering roots, a coyote remembers the easiest crossings and the places where rabbits feed. The wash itself becomes part of those memory maps, not as a line on paper, but as a sequence of smells, textures, shadows, and slopes. You and I follow more slowly, learning the route by calm repetition. As the channel deepens slightly, the banks reveal layers again. Some bands are coarse, filled with pebbles. Others are smooth and fine, laid down by quieter water. A dark stain marks where organic matter collected. Roots pass through the layers, ignoring our categories, taking what they can from each one. The geologic story and the living story are interlaced here. Sediment shapes plant growth. Plants shape sediment retention. Animals dig through both. Water returns to revise the page. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem depends on this ongoing revision. Without occasional flows, the channel would lose its distinctness and the concentration of resources that comes with it. Without long dry periods, it would become something else entirely. Less desert, less tuned to waiting. Its character lives between flow and dryness. That in-between quality gives the place its strange gentleness. It is never only a river and never only dry land. It is a threshold. Thresholds can be restful places because they ask us to soften definitions. The wash is a path and a habitat. It is a drain and a garden. It is a memory of water and a promise of water. It is a place where the desert gathers its scattered abundance, but only for those willing to notice slowly. As we move through it, we do not need to name everything perfectly. We only need to remain near. A faint smell of dampness appears in the imagination, perhaps from a shaded pocket that held moisture longer than the open bed. This smell is subtle, not the strong scent of a wet forest, but a quiet mineral coolness under dry leaves. In real washes, damp pockets may persist beneath surface dryness after storms, especially in shaded bends, under debris, or where subsurface flow remains. Animals can detect these places more readily than we can. Plants are rooted into them. Subsurface flow is one of the wash's hidden movements. Even when no water is visible, moisture may move slowly through sand and gravel below the channel, following gravity and the shape of the bedrock or compacted layers beneath. This hidden flow can support deeper-rooted vegetation along the wash, making a green line where no stream appears. You see the trees and shrubs, but not the water sustaining them. The wash becomes a visible sign of an invisible passage. That invisible passage is part of why washes often stand out from surrounding desert. From a distance, you might see a band of taller green tracing the route of runoff. Birds see it too. Mammals see it. Insects follow it by flowers, shade, or humidity. The wash is a signal across the landscape, saying, in its quiet way, that conditions are a little different here. We enter that difference with respect, as if stepping into a room where many small lives are resting. A breeze carries the scent of creosote from the open flats nearby. Creosote bush is one of the signature plants of the Sonoran Desert, though it often occupies well-drained spaces beyond the wash center. After rain, its leaves release a smell many people associate with desert storms. The scent is sharp, clean, and resinous, but in the night it arrives softened, mixed with dust and mesquite. You can breathe it in slowly, letting it place you unmistakably in this desert. Creosote roots spread widely near the surface, capturing brief moisture from light rains. Mesquite may reach deeper. Palo verde uses green bark and small leaves. Cacti store water in swollen stems. Annuals wait as seeds. Each strategy occupies a different part of the desert's moisture puzzle. The wash adds another piece by concentrating runoff. It does not make the desert easy. It makes the desert diverse, offering more choices for life than a flat, uniform surface would. As we drift onward, we pass a patch where floodwater has laid down a crescent of twigs against a shrub. This debris line shows the height and direction of a past flow. It may look messy, but it is habitat. Insects shelter there. Seeds catch there. Fine sediment collects there. A small mammal may investigate it for food. Over time, if it remains, the debris can create a slightly richer, moister microsite where new plants may establish. Flood debris is one way washes build their own complexity. Water strips material from one place and deposits it in another, sometimes opening ground, sometimes sheltering it. A young seedling may be destroyed in one flood, while another takes root behind the branch that flood left behind. The ecosystem does not move toward a fixed, tidy form. It moves through disturbance into new arrangements, each one temporary and useful to different lives. You can feel how gentle this idea becomes when stretched across enough time. What seems disruptive in a moment becomes part of renewal in the long view. The wash is always being edited by rain, but never erased. Its living community is adapted to those edits. Seeds wait in many places. Roots re-sprout. Animals move to higher ground and return. Insects recolonize damp patches. The channel receives change, then settles again into silence. We settle with it. The night is now deep enough that colors have mostly left the landscape. What remains is tone: pale sand, dark shrubs, gray stone, black sky. The world feels reduced but not diminished. In low light, texture becomes more important than color. You notice the softness of sediment, the roughness of bark, the smoothness of flood-worn stones, the brittle edges of dry leaves. The wash becomes a place of touch as much as sight. Many desert animals live through touch. Whiskers brush stems, feet sense vibration, antennae explore surfaces. A snake tastes scent with its tongue and reads chemical traces through specialized organs. A scorpion detects minute movements in the sand. A spider feels tension along silk. These ways of knowing are quiet and close. They remind us that the world does not have to be bright to be richly perceived. Darkness is not emptiness. It is another medium. In a wash, darkness can be protective. It lowers temperature, reduces water loss, and allows animals to move with less exposure to daylight heat. Flowers may open into it. Mammals may forage through it. Reptiles may use its remaining warmth from stones. The ecosystem does not stop when the sun leaves. It changes its language. You can let your own thoughts change language too, becoming less sharp, more sensory, more like cool sand and dim branches. Ahead, the wash passes near a cluster of barrel cactus. These rounded plants often grow on slopes and well-drained soils, but they may appear near washes where conditions suit them. Their ribs allow expansion after rain and contraction during dryness. Their spines cast tiny shadows on the plant's surface, reducing heat and light. In bloom, their flowers attract insects, and later their fruits may persist, offering food. Even their shape is a quiet solution to storing what arrives briefly. The barrel cactus reminds us that water storage can be internal as well as underground. Cacti hold moisture in living tissues, guarded by waxy skin and spines. Their roots take up water quickly after rain, then the plant lives slowly from its reserves. This is not hoarding in a human sense. It is timing made physical. The wash, the cactus, the seed, and the burrow all store in different ways. The whole landscape is a study in how to carry a brief gift across a long interval. A soft scraping comes from the side of the channel, where loose gravel shifts under a small foot. Then stillness returns. You can imagine a woodrat moving through the brush, gathering plant material for its midden. Woodrat middens can preserve plant fragments for astonishing lengths of time in dry caves or shelters, offering scientists records of past vegetation. In the wash tonight, a fresh midden is simply a home, but even homes can become archives when the desert keeps them dry. This is one of the ways the Sonoran Desert remembers. It remembers in packrat middens, in sediment layers, in old root channels, in the growth rings of long-lived trees, in pollen buried in soil, and in the genetic adaptations of its plants and animals. The wash is both living place and record. We do not need to read every record fully. It is enough to feel the depth behind the present moment, the oldness held beneath tonight's quiet. Oldness in the desert is not heavy, it is spacious. A wash may look freshly combed by the last storm, yet it follows a drainage pattern shaped over long spans. A tree may leaf out after a recent rain, yet its roots may have persisted through many dry years. A seedling may be new, but its species carries ancient knowledge of drought, heat, flood, and waiting. As we walk, or drift, or simply imagine moving, we are accompanied by all these times at once. The channel begins to slope toward a wider alluvial fan, where many washes may spread across the base of mountains. On an alluvial fan, water leaving a narrow canyon or steep slope loses energy and drops sediment, building a broad apron over time. Channels may shift across the fan, abandoning one course and taking another during later floods. This movement creates a complex pattern of soils and vegetation ages. The wash we follow may be one thread in that fan's patient weaving. Alluvial fans can be subtle when you stand on them. The slope is gentle, the surface broad, and the mountains may seem still. Yet underfoot is the accumulated work of countless flows, each carrying stone a little farther from its source. Coarse material near the upper fan, finer material lower down, channels branching and rejoining, desert pavement forming on older surfaces, young washes cutting through newer deposits. Geology here is not a background, it is the stage and the script together. The living wash responds to those surfaces. Older, more stable areas may support different plant communities than freshly disturbed channels. Fine soils may favor some annuals, rocky bars may favor others. Trees may line active washes where runoff concentrates, while surrounding surfaces hold creosote, bursage, cactus, and scattered grasses. Animals move among them freely, using each patch according to season and need. The ecosystem is therefore both linear and spread out, a corridor and a neighborhood at once. You can picture us arriving at a place where the wash widens over the fan, no longer a narrow lane but a braided pattern of shallow channels. Moonlight lies in several pale strips. Shrubs grow on low islands between them. During a strong rain, water might divide here, each branch carrying part of the flow. Later, all branches fall silent. The pattern remains, like fingers opened across the desert floor. We follow one branch, then another, without urgency. Braided desert washes are especially good at showing how temporary water can occupy many paths. A small obstruction may send flow left. A sandbar may build. A later flood may cut right. Plants establish on higher islands and are bypassed or sometimes uprooted by later water. This shifting creates a dynamic patchwork. For animals, it means varied cover and feeding sites. For plants, it means risk and opportunity together. For us, in the quiet of narration, it means a landscape that never becomes monotonous. Monotony is easy to imagine from far away, but the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem dissolves it close up. No two bends are quite the same. One has deep shade and leaf litter. One has pale gravel and open sky. One has a damp pocket beneath roots. One has a bank cut clean by recent flow. One holds cactus at its edge. Another grasses. Another a stand of mesquite. The diversity is quiet, but it is constant. A small bird may have bathed in dust here earlier, leaving a shallow oval in the powder. Dust bathing helps birds maintain feathers, absorbing oils and dislodging parasites. The behavior is ordinary and gentle. yet it leaves a mark as intimate as a handprint. You can imagine quail or sparrows fluttering in the dust, then shaking themselves clean under the shade. Even dust, which seems like the sign of dryness, becomes part of care. Dust itself has a journey. Fine particles can come from weathered rock, dry lake beds, flood deposits, and wind-scoured surfaces. Some dust brings minerals, some settles on leaves, altering light absorption until rain washes it away. Some enters soils, adding texture over long periods. In the wash, dust is moved by wind, trapped by plants, wetted by storms, and folded into sediment. It is not merely something to be swept aside. It is the desert in its smallest traveling form. We move through a faint veil of that imagined dust, though the night air remains clear. The stars are steady above the wash, and the channel seems to glow a little under them. If clouds were to gather, the mood would change slowly. The air might feel heavier. The smell of creosote might rise before drops fell. Animals might shift, some seeking cover, others preparing for opportunity. The wash would wait, as it always does, shaped for receiving. Rain in the Sonoran Desert often arrives with scent before sound. Dry soil releases compounds from plants and microbes when moistened, and wind carries them ahead of the storm. Creosote leaves contribute their resinous signature. The first drops strike dust and stone, making small dark marks that widen and join. If rain is light, it may settle the dust and dampen the surface without flow. If rain is strong, water gathers, finds the channel, and begins the wash's other life. That other life is not separate from tonight's dry life. It is folded inside it. Every dry pebble is positioned for future water. Every seed lies where water might reach it. Every root occupies soil that past water helped build. Every animal trail follows a landform shaped by flow. The wash's wet and dry states are like two sides of a breath, each making sense only with the other. We are moving through the exhale, quiet and spacious. At a bend where the bank is undercut, a hollow forms beneath roots. Such hollows can shelter small animals, collect leaves, and provide cooler resting places. They may change after each flood, growing, collapsing, or filling with sediment. A fox might pause there. A rabbit might use the cover briefly. Insects may shelter in the debris. The hollow is temporary, but while it lasts, it adds another chamber to the wash's architecture. Architecture in natural systems is often made without intention in the human sense. Roots, stones, water, wind, and growth produce spaces. Animals then discover and use them. A branch falls, and a shaded cavity appears. A bank erodes, and a ledge forms. A burrow collapses, and a depression catches seeds. The wash is always making rooms. Some last a day, some a season, some many years. You can pass them slowly, feeling how the desert shelters life through form. The air grows even quieter, and now the silence between small sounds feels wide. A cricket calls, pauses, calls again. A faint wing beat passes near a flower. Sand shifts somewhere beyond sight. The wash holds each sound lightly, without echo, because the open desert absorbs more than it reflects. This acoustic softness is part of the sleep of the place. There are no hard walls, only banks, shrubs, stones, and sky. Sound appears and is gently taken back. In daylight, sound behaves differently. Heat can shimmer over the channel. Bird calls may carry across open ground. Bees hum in flowering trees. Leaves click in dry wind. But the wash never becomes truly loud. Even its busiest hours are held by space. You can sense how a landscape with so much room around each sound invites the mind to loosen. Nothing crowds the ear. Nothing insists on being the center. The channel lets sound pass through. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is also a place of edges between plant communities. Where the wash cuts through creosote flats, trees and shrubs along the channel create a greener line. Where it descends from rocky slopes, it carries mountain fragments and sometimes supports species from slightly higher elevations in sheltered pockets. Where it approaches broader lowlands, it may spread into sandy networks with grasses and annuals. Each section has its own mood, and we move through them as through rooms of one quiet house. In one reach, canyon ragweed may grow, its leaves adding a different green to the understory. In another, desert broom may colonize disturbed sandy ground, especially where floods have cleared space. In another, Catclaw acacia makes a dense thicket that birds and small mammals use for cover. These plants can seem ordinary unless you sit with them. Then each becomes a way the wash holds light, shade, food, and protection. The thickets are especially important for nesting birds. Dense branches conceal nests from sun and from easy discovery. They also support insects, which feed nestlings during the breeding season. A pair of birds may choose a particular shrub because of branch structure, height, shade, and proximity to food. To us, it may be one shrub among many. To them, it is a carefully selected place in the wash's architecture. Life here notices details because details are conditions. You may feel your attention becoming slower and more detailed too. The mind begins to accept the pace of the wash. Instead of searching for something large to happen, it rests on the curve of a branch, the line of a bank, the way moonlight touches the edge of a stone. This is how the desert becomes intimate. It does not overwhelm with abundance all at once. It asks you to stay, and then it gives small things steadily. A side channel enters from the right, narrower than the main wash and lined with angular stones. It may drain a rocky slope, where rainfall runs quickly over thin soil. The stones in that channel are sharper, less traveled, perhaps moved shorter distances. Where it meets the main wash, a little fan of gravel spreads out. Seeds and debris collect at the junction. Plants may root around the edges, taking advantage of sediment and water from both directions. Confluences like this can become hotspots of activity. Animals following either channel may meet the same shaded crossing. Water from two catchments brings different materials. The soil may be deeper. The vegetation may be denser. A bird might perch above the junction to watch for insects. A fox might pause to smell both paths. We pause too, letting the meeting of channels become a meeting of tempos, each small drainage bringing its own slow story into the larger wash. The stones here vary in color. Some are reddish from iron minerals, some are pale quartz, some are dark volcanic pieces, almost black in the moonlight. In daylight, the mixture would be more obvious, a scattered geology lesson underfoot. These stones tell of the mountains behind us, of ancient eruptions, intrusions, uplift, fracturing, weathering, and transport. Yet tonight, they are simply cool shapes in the sand, holding the old earth quietly. You can rest your attention on the idea that every stone has come down by degrees. It may have broken from a cliff face, rolled into a gully, been lifted by stormwater, rested for decades, moved again, and finally settled here. It may move farther during a future flood. Its journey is not linear in the way we might imagine a journey. It is stop and start, burial and exposure, stillness and motion. The wash understands interrupted travel. Interrupted travel is how many desert lives proceed. A seed waits, grows, sets seed and disappears. A toad sleeps underground, rises for rain and returns. A tree grows slowly, drops leaves, blooms, rests, and blooms again. A channel flows, dries, and flows again. We follow that pattern in the writing itself, moving, pausing, noticing, and moving on. The rhythm is not a straight line to an ending. It is a descent into deeper familiarity. A faint pale shape on a stone may be a lichen patch. Another may be a splash of old mineral deposit from evaporated water. The difference matters scientifically, but in this half-light both remind us that surfaces are records. A rock face can hold biological growth, chemical stain, abrasion marks, and sun-darkened varnish. Desert varnish, that dark coating on exposed rocks, forms slowly through interactions among clay minerals, manganese, iron, microbes, and time. It can make stones look polished by age. When floods turn such stones, a darker upper face may be buried and a lighter underside exposed. The wash then shows a pattern of recent movement in color contrasts. A geologist can read this more precisely, but we can appreciate it gently. The stones are not static ornaments. They are participants in flow, light, and weathering. Even their color changes with position, exposure, and time. Under the moon, those differences soften into one quiet field. We move away from the confluence, choosing the wider branch. The channel floor is open again, with low shrubs along either side. A kangaroo rat may cross ahead in quick bounds, tail extended for balance, then vanish near a burrow. Its body is beautifully suited to dry life. It can produce highly concentrated urine, conserve water, and derive moisture from seeds. Its large hind legs allow efficient movement over open ground. Its life is small, but its adaptation is profound. Kangaroo rats also influence plant communities through seed collection and caching. They may eat many seeds, but they may also store some that are later forgotten. Their digging disturbs soil, creating small patches where water can enter and seeds can lodge. Their presence shapes the wash quietly, one foraging trip at a time. You can imagine the burrow below, lined with dry plant material, holding seeds gathered under moonlight. It is a pantry, a shelter, and a cool refuge from the day. The wash's mammals are often most knowable through what they leave behind. Tracks, burrows, scat, clipped stems, seed piles, and pathways under shrubs tell their stories. Many avoid the brightest hours, so the casual daytime visitor may think the desert is emptier than it is. But at night, and after rain, and in the soft margins of dawn, evidence gathers. You learn to see not absence, but discretion. The ecosystem is alive in ways that do not always step into open view. Discretion can be comforting. Not every life announces itself. Not every movement needs witness. The wash is full of beings that survive by being subtle, by matching sand, moving at night, waiting underground, or blooming only when conditions are right. There is dignity in that hiddenness. As you settle deeper, you may feel permission to become quiet too, to stop presenting yourself to the bright surface of the day, and simply rest. The channel begins to show signs of a past flow that was strong enough to move larger wood. A branch lies stripped of bark, wedged between stones. Its upstream side has collected leaves and fine sediment. On the downstream side, a small hollow has been scoured. This simple arrangement changes the way future water will move. It may deepen the hollow, bury the leaves, or carry the branch farther. For now, it is a small feature of structure and shelter. A lizard may use the branch by day, climbing onto it when it warms. Ants may use it as a bridge. Beetles may hide beneath it. Fungi may begin to work inside if moisture reaches it. Termites may find it. A wren may perch there briefly before moving on. The branch's life as wood continues after it leaves the tree, not as living tissue, but as habitat and nutrient. The wash is good at extending usefulness. Nothing in the wash returns quickly to nothing. A leaf becomes litter. Litter becomes soil. Soil feeds roots. Roots hold banks. Banks shape water. Water moves seeds. Seeds become shade. Shade protects animals. Animals move nutrients. Nutrients feed plants. The cycle is not a neat circle, but a braided pattern like the wash itself. You can let it braid through your thoughts, connecting one soft image to the next without requiring effort. In some Sonoran washes, invasive plants can alter fire patterns and water use, but tonight we stay with the natural functioning of an intact, quiet ecosystem. It is useful to know that balance can be changed, yet the tone remains gentle, focused on what the wash is, when its relationships are allowed to work. Native grasses, shrubs, trees, insects, birds, reptiles, mammals, microbes, and water form a system that has learned the local timing of dryness and rain. The more we follow, the more the wash feels less like scenery and more like a living process. It is not a backdrop for animals. It is the reason many of them are here. Its shade, soil, water pathways, sediment, plants, and shelter make the community possible. When you say Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem, you are naming not just a place, but a pattern of dependence, renewed whenever rain crosses stone and gathers in a low channel. We approach a slight drop where bedrock appears in the wash floor. The sand thins, and smooth rock shows through, polished in places by past flows. Bedrock channels behave differently from sandy ones. Water cannot sink as readily where the rock is exposed, so after rain it may run farther or collect in shallow basins. These basins, if shaded, can hold water for a little while, becoming important drinking sites. and temporary aquatic habitats. Even when dry, bedrock pools are distinctive. They may hold fine sediment, leaves, and mineral stains. Their edges are rounded. Their surfaces feel cooler in the night. Animals may remember them after storms, returning to drink while water lasts. Birds may visit. Insects may breed. Mammals may leave tracks in the drying mud around them. You can imagine one such basin ahead, empty now, but shaped like a bowl for future sky and rain. The presence of bedrock tells us the wash has cut down to a harder layer. Perhaps the surrounding sediments were removed by repeated flows, or perhaps the rock rises here as part of the underlying structure. Geology determines how water moves, how deep soil can form, where plants root, and where pools persist. The living wash depends on stone as much as on rain. Its softness is built around hardness, and that contrast gives the channel its form. We rest near the dry basin for a moment. The rock around it holds moonlight differently from sand, with a faint sheen along its smooth surface. A few leaves have collected at the bottom. One feather lies against the edge. If rain came, the basin would fill from overflow and direct drops, turning into a small mirror. For now, it holds only darkness, leaves, and the idea of water. That is enough for this hour. Desert animals often know where these temporary waters appear. Some may visit only when they smell or hear rainfall. Others may incorporate such places into their routes. The water may last hours, days, or longer depending on depth, shade, temperature, and sediment. Around it, life concentrates briefly, then disperses. The wash expands and contracts in importance, not because it changes location, but because water changes the value of every place within it. You can feel that expansion and contraction as a slow pulse. Dry channel, quiet corridor, rain-filled channel, flowing artery, drying pools, gathering places, damp sand, green beginning, dry sand again, storage and waiting. The Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem is a pulse ecosystem. But the pulse is not frantic. It is broad, seasonal, sometimes irregular, and ancient. We listen for it the way we might listen for a far-off tide in a shell. Beyond the bedrock, sand returns, deeper and softer. The channel curves beside a low terrace where older flood deposits sit slightly above the active bed. That terrace may flood only during larger events, so plants growing there face less frequent disturbance. Shrubs may be larger, soil may be more developed, burrows may be more stable. The active channel and its terrace provide different opportunities, side by side, separated by only a small rise in elevation. A few inches of height can matter greatly in a wash. Lower ground receives more frequent water and disturbance. Slightly higher ground receives less water, but more stability. Seeds that land in one place may be washed away, while those on the terrace may survive drought better if roots reach moisture. Animals choose resting places based on these small differences too. The desert teaches precision through subtlety. You start to see elevation not as a number, but as a feeling underfoot. On the terrace, a small mound may mark the entrance to a burrow. The sand around it has been kicked outward, lighter than the surrounding surface. Inside, the temperature changes less than outside. The air is more humid. The chamber is protected from direct sun and from much of the night's cooling. For many desert animals, the burrow is not merely shelter. It is a carefully chosen climate, a private pocket of livable conditions within a wide and demanding place. Burrows may be reused by different species over time. A hole dug by one animal can later shelter another. A collapsed burrow can leave a depression that catches seeds. Soil brought to the surface can change local texture and nutrient distribution. The underground work of animals creates a shifting pattern of mounds, holes, and soft patches across the wash and its edges. Again, we see how life modifies the land that supports it. A desert iguana might use burrows in sandy areas, especially in warmer parts of the day, though it is a creature of daylight more than night. Chuckwallas prefer rocky places, retreating into crevices and using their bodies to wedge securely when needed. Whiptails move quickly through open sun, searching for insects. Each reptile has its thermal and structural preferences. The wash can provide many of them in close proximity: sand, rock, shade, sun, shrubs, and open space. In the cool night, Those day-active reptiles rest. Their stillness is part of the wash's changing schedule. They will return with warmth, and the nocturnal mammals will withdraw. Birds will begin calling while bats and moths fade into shelter. Ants will adjust their activity to temperature and moisture. Plants will open or close pores depending on conditions. The ecosystem passes responsibility from one group to another across the turning of hours, like a quiet handoff. We are still in the handoff toward deeper night, when much of the wash is active but hidden. The moonlight has lowered behind branches, and shadows gather in longer pools. You can hear your own breathing more than the animals now. That is not because they are gone. It is because the wash absorbs their sounds and lets you rest. The channel is becoming less something we observe and more something we float through in thought. A thin cloud passes over the moon, and the wash dims further. Without the pale light, the sand and shrubs merge into a soft, dark field. In that darkness, scent and touch become more vivid in imagination. Dry bark, cool stone, dust, a faint floral sweetness. The slight pressure of night air settling into the channel. You do not need clear outlines. The mind can rest in atmosphere, and the wash has atmosphere enough to carry us. When the moon returns, a few flowers may catch it. Desert evening primrose, if blooming after sufficient moisture, can open pale petals near sandy washes and flats. Its blossoms may appear luminous at dusk or night, visited by moths and later by bees. Other annuals may have already gone to seed, their dry stems standing like fine lines in the sand. Bloom and seed often coexist, because the desert staggers its offerings according to species, season, and rain. Flowering in the wash is a conversation with uncertainty. Plants produce seeds in numbers that acknowledge uneven futures. Some years, conditions are poor. Some years, seedlings fail early. Some years, rain comes generously enough for a spectacular bloom. The seed bank spreads risk through time. This strategy gives the wash a hidden abundance even in dry years. Beneath a plain-looking surface lies the potential for color not yet called upward. You can imagine those colors without brightening the mood too much. Yellow palo verde flowers falling like soft light. Purple lupine along the margins. White evening primrose opening in dusk. Orange poppies after winter rain. Tiny blue and pink blossoms that require kneeling to see. The wash can become luminous after moisture, but its brightness is seasonal and therefore gentle. It comes, it feeds, it seeds, and it fades back into the muted ground. A hummingbird may remember the route of flowering shrubs along the wash, visiting each bloom with quick precision. Its body is energetic, yet its presence can still belong to the calm of the ecosystem. It takes nectar, moves pollen, rests on a twig, and vanishes. The wash provides fuel stations in a dry landscape, especially when blooms are spaced along drainage lines. For a small flying animal, such patterns can be deeply important, forming a map of sweetness across arid ground. Bees use similar maps, though on different scales. Solitary bees may nest in bare or lightly vegetated soil, needing patches that are not too disturbed and not too compacted. They emerge when their host plants bloom, sometimes for only a brief season. A wash with varied soils and flowering plants can support many such species. Their lives are quiet, close to the ground, and easy to miss, yet they carry the future of flowers from one opening to another. The wash's insects also feed birds, reptiles, bats, spiders, and small mammals. Insects convert plant material into moving protein. They pollinate, decompose, aerate soil, disperse seeds, and become food in turn. A tiny caterpillar on a desert willow leaf may feed a nestling. A moth drawn to night flowers may feed a bat. A beetle under bark may feed a lizard. The web is intricate, but its movements are soft enough to disappear into the background hush. We continue along the channel, and now the vegetation changes subtly. Desert willow may appear where the wash has enough moisture, its narrow leaves and graceful form making the channel feel almost riparian for a stretch. Its flowers, often pale pink to lavender, attract pollinators during warmer months. Despite its name, It is not a true willow, but it belongs beautifully to washes and arroyos. Its presence suggests deeper or more reliable moisture than open desert plants alone would indicate. Under desert willow, the shade is different from mesquite shade. It may feel lighter, more filtered, with long leaves moving easily in air. Seed pods hang slender and dry when mature, releasing seeds with silky hairs that wind can carry. During bloom, the flowers add softness and color to the wash. At night, the tree becomes a dark fountain shape against the sky. You can pass beneath it slowly, hearing the faintest leaf movement above. In places where water persists longer, washes can approach riparian habitat, supporting cottonwoods, willows, or other moisture-loving species, though our Sonoran wash remains mostly dry and desert-adapted. The boundary between desert wash and riparian corridor can be gradual. More water brings taller trees, denser shade, more birds, and cooler air. Less water brings sparser shrubs and more open sand. The wash we follow holds the middle ground, with enough moisture to gather life, but enough dryness to keep the desert's spare calm. That middle ground is important for the sleep of the narration. It is not lush in a way that overwhelms. It is not barren in a way that feels empty. It is balanced between presence and space. You can see through the branches to stars. You can smell leaves but also dust. You can hear insects but also silence. The wash gives the mind objects to rest on, then opens enough room around them for drowsiness to enter. A morning dove may roost nearby, its body tucked and still. In the morning, doves will come to the ground for seeds and may visit water after rain. They are common desert presences, soft in color and movement. Their wings make a gentle whistling sound when they take off, a sound of air through feathers rather than alarm in this telling. They feed, fly, nest, and return, part of the wash's daily circulation of seed and sound. Quail, doves, sparrows, thrashers, wrens, woodpeckers, and flycatchers all use wash habitats in different ways. Some nest in shrubs, some forage along the ground, some hunt insects from perches, some feed on fruits or seeds. The taller vegetation along washes provides structure that surrounding flats may lack. More structure means more niches, more perches, more nest sites, and more shade. The wash is a vertical offering in a landscape often described as open. Vertical structure matters greatly. A low shrub supports one set of insects and nesters. A tall mesquite supports another. A saguaro cavity supports still another. Dead branches provide perches and nesting cavities. Fallen logs create ground shelter. Height, density, and decay stage all shape habitat. You can imagine the wash not as a flat line, but as a layered woodland in miniature, with life occupying ground, trunk, branch, flower, cavity, and air. As we move beneath this structure, the night remains gentle. The branches do not press down. They cradle the darkness. The channel floor holds us steady. Every so often, a gap opens, and the stars return. Then the vegetation closes softly again. The rhythm is like drifting in and out of sleep, sometimes aware of the room around you, sometimes returning to the dream of sand, roots, and moonlit stone. A faint musk may linger near a trail, perhaps left by javelinas moving through earlier. These social mammals often travel in groups, feeding on prickly pear pads, roots, fruits, and other plant material. They may use washes as travel routes, especially where cover and food are available. Their hooves leave paired impressions in damp soil, and their rooting can disturb ground in ways that create small patches for seeds. Like other animals here, they are both users and shapers of the wash. Mule deer may also browse along washes, especially where shrubs and trees offer tender growth. In dry times, the greener vegetation along drainage lines can be important. Deer move quietly at dawn, dusk, or night, stepping through the wash with careful placement. They may feed on leaves, twigs, flowers, and fruits, depending on season. Their presence links upland slopes to lower channels as they move between cover, forage, and resting areas. Large animals remind us that the wash operates at many scales. To an ant, a pebble is a wall. To a kangaroo rat, a shrub is a landmark. To a deer, the wash is a passage through terrain. To water, the entire channel is a route toward lower ground. To a tree, it is a source of deeper moisture and disturbed soil. The same place changes meaning depending on the body moving through it. We move as listeners, and for us, it becomes a pathway into rest. The wind shifts, and the smell of dry leaves returns. A few seed pods knock together softly overhead. The sound is irregular and gentle, never becoming a pattern sharp enough to wake the mind. The desert at night often has this quality. Small sounds separated by large pauses. Those pauses are not empty. They are space for the body to loosen. You can let each pause lengthen, like a wash widening after a narrow bend. If dawn were near, the eastern sky would begin to pale, and the nocturnal layer would recede. But we are not there yet. We stay in the deeper hour, where the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem belongs to creatures that trust darkness. The air is cool, the stones are quiet, the roots hold the banks. Beneath the sand, burrows keep their small climates. Above the sand, branches hold sleeping birds. Around all of it, the channel continues its slow descent. A few stars are hidden by the dark canopy, then revealed again. This alternating view gives the wash a feeling of breath, enclosed and open. Enclosed and open. The surrounding desert may be vast, but inside the wash, vastness comes in glimpses. That is easier for the tired mind. It does not have to hold the whole horizon. It can hold one bend, one branch, one smooth stone, one cool pocket of air. The wash now approaches a place where the bed is lined with coarse gravel, and our imagined movement becomes quieter, more careful. Coarse gravel drains quickly, so plants here may root near edges rather than in the center, unless deeper moisture is available below. During flow, gravel creates turbulence, slowing water in small eddies behind stones. Those eddies drop fine sediment and organic matter, making tiny islands of possibility. Even in a rough bed, softness gathers in sheltered places. Behind one stone, a little fan of silt may have formed. A seed rests there. Perhaps it will remain dormant. Perhaps it will be eaten. Perhaps, after the right rain, it will send down a root before sending up leaves. The future is not fixed, and the wash does not treat uncertainty as failure. It spreads chances widely. Many seeds, many burrows, many branches, many small pools, many nights of foraging. Life continues through multiplicity. This multiplicity is quiet, not crowded. The desert has space between its attempts. A seed can wait a hand's breadth from another. A shrub can hold shade without closing the sky. A burrow can open beneath roots while flowers bloom above. The wash allows overlap without congestion. That spaciousness may be why it feels so suitable for sleep. There is enough to imagine, but not so much that the mind has to hurry. A moth settles briefly on sand, wings folded like a pale leaf. It may be nearly invisible until it moves. Its caterpillar stage may have fed on a specific plant, tying its life to the wash's vegetation in a precise way. Adult moths often live briefly, seeking nectar and mates, becoming food for bats, birds, and spiders. Their softness in the night is one of the desert's delicate offerings. You might see only a flicker and never know the rest. There is so much rest in not knowing everything. The wash keeps the full stories of moths, roots, microbes, and hidden water beyond our grasp. We receive only enough to feel accompanied. That is all a sleep journey needs. It does not need completion. It needs continuity. The channel provides it, one bend after another, carrying us deeper into the feeling of a place where life has made peace with intervals. The next reach lowers almost imperceptibly toward a broader sandy plain, and the wash begins to open once more, its dark trees thinning as the channel spreads into the quiet geometry of lower desert. The lower desert receives the wash without ceremony, and the channel becomes wider, shallower, and softer under the night sky. The trees stand farther apart now, but their shadows still reach across the sand in quiet pieces. You can feel the long path behind us without looking back, held in the cool stones, the dry roots, and the faint scent of leaves resting beneath mesquite. Here, the Sonoran Desert Wash Ecosystem loosens into stillness. The sand is pale where moonlight touches it, and dark where branches lean low. A few tracks cross the open bed, already softening at the edges, and a single dry leaf trembles once before becoming still again. Beneath the surface, seeds wait without impatience. Roots hold their hidden water, and burrows keep the small warmth of sleeping bodies. We come to rest where the wash has spread its last fine sediment across a quiet bend. Nothing rushes here. The channel does not need water tonight to be complete. It holds the memory of rain in its shape, the promise of bloom in its soil, and the slow breath of desert life in every shaded hollow. You can let your own breathing settle into that same unhurried rhythm, lighter now, softer now, with no place left to reach. Above us, the stars remain clear, and the desert gives back only the smallest sounds. A twig shifts, a cricket calls once from the dark edge of the wash. Far below the surface, in the coolness that lingers after heat has gone, the living roots continue their patient work. Far above, the open sky keeps its distance, wide and calm. The wash lies quiet in the moonlight, holding sand, seed, stone and shadow, and now you rest with it, in the soft dark, where nothing asks to be hurried.